All right, and what reason did you give him then for leaving the job?
I believe the letter that I gave as well talked about a conflict of interest. The reason that I left was because being the director of the Housing Authority programs, I had employees that worked for me as well. And I had spoken to Mr. Finucane in the year 2010 regarding the conflict of interest because HUD regulations state that if a person is a landlord, that they cannot be a board member or an executive director as well, not a board member. So I brought that to Mr. Finucane's attention back in 2010.
Okay.
And on many occasions spoke to Mr. Finucane about getting that resolved. And then I actually had spoken to him again, and I believe it was December or October, regarding that, and we were going to port out one of the vouchers, which his wife is actually the owner of the property or landlord. So it was a conflict of interest because he is her husband. So I asked him about that. We're going to port that particular voucher out. We tried to port it to New Haven Housing Authority. We have the documentation of that as well, John DeMillion's office. And that unit of his did not pass inspection. So because he did not pass HQS inspection, New Haven Housing Authority or John DeMillion's office would not take that particular voucher.
Okay.
So that's for one.
Right.
The other one was a board member who was he was just a commissioner of the board who makes the policies and decisions as well. And Mr. Finucane asked me to speak to that particular board member, and I did. And the board member stated that before he resigned, that he would resign first from the Housing Authority as a board member before he would have his client have the information or her packet ported to New Haven because he had it for like over 17 years or whatever. So he said, before you do anything, let me talk to Mr. Finucane. And then I found out later, rather than him resigning, he actually became vice chairman of the board. Not just the commissioner, but vice chair. So in the meantime, I spoke to Mr. Finucane again, I think it was sometime in December, and asked Mr. Finucane.
That would be December 2010?
Yes.
Okay. Hold on a minute. So she, okay, so I'm trying to determine, okay, so you gave 2 weeks notice, so you handed the letter to Mr. Finucane.
Mr. Finucane, yes, that I was resigning, yes.
All right.
Because the issues that I had brought up since 2010 were not resolved.
Okay, and is this the letter that you had issued him at the time?
Yes,
Okay. Okay, so this refers to the conflict of interest. So did he have any response to that?
Basically, that's why we're going to try to get that particular voucher ported out, and that did not happen. His response every time I approached him was like, yeah, we'll talk about it later. So nothing ever happened in that time frame. Roundabout, I'm not sure, like the end of December or actually October, the housing specialist who worked under my direction had sent the information to DeMillion's office for that to be ported out, like I said, and they did the inspection and it didn't pass. So because it didn't pass, it still remains part of the Housing Authority's portfolio, which came under our jurisdiction.
Right.
So by the executive director as well as the board members, still, I was the one who cut checks or had an employee that worked with me as well in cutting the checks of the funds that are issued from the federal government. So I still was cutting checks, whereas the policies and regulations of HUD say that if you're a board member, if there's a conflict of interest, that they are not to receive the funds.
Right.
And if it was a landlord, then we would have terminated that landlord. So I did bring this into Mr. Finucane's attention since last year.